Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Odd-Kast. And today we're on the subject of autism as part of my Neuro Divergence series that I'm hopefully going to have more and more guests on. And to start it off today is my good friend Josh. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Joshua Murphy, and I've got autism. So when David said he'll be all right to talk to do the podcast, I thought, yeah, I'll just do it. I'll be really happy. I said I was really happy to take part and
Thank you for that as well.
hopefully teach everyone a bit about
Yeah,
autism. I'll tell you a bit about my life as well, and then we'll talk about, and then we'll just see where this conversation takes us.
yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So, Josh, just to kick it off, when was you diagnosed with autism?
So so as you know, that everyone can get diagnosed from um, everyone could get diagnosed from any age.
Yeah,
So like my personal story is that I was diagnosed really, really early. Like there was about 2 months when I was about 2 years old. You go through like an annual checkup to make sure that you're hitting all your key milestones.
yeah.
And I was showing some like weird behaviours
Hmm.
um, that some of the experts were catching up a little bit, and then they were asking questions like, "Oh, does he do this usually?" And my mum was like, "Yeah, yeah, he does." And it's like interesting, which is
Yeah,
which from giving a health professional, interesting is about as big as red flag as you can get.
yeah.
so, so they wanted to do a couple more tests on me.
Hmm.
Um, and then not 6 months later, I was then diagnosed with autism.
Okay,
So I was actually diagnosed really early at 2.5 years old.
okay.
The way my family reacted was all very different. Like my granddad was like absolute nonchalant about it. He was like, "No, I don't really care really." Not
Yeah,
the fact that he didn't care as a person, but he was like,
yeah,
he's the same guy coming in as he got out. Now we
yeah,
just got a label to it. My
yeah,
mum eventually saw it the same way the same day. My nan was thought, "Oh my god, no," and literally stormed out the room. Not because she's a bad person, but she was like really concerned to where I was going to end up.
yeah, yeah,
Um, because back then, because the knowledge of autism back in 20 years ago isn't as profound as what we know now.
yeah,
So all my fam, and they didn't have the knowledge that obviously we do know. Obviously, we all know now.
yeah,
So my nan was really worried. She thought autism meant I'll be spending my adulthood in a care home.
yeah, yeah,
But she didn't realise that there was also like different variations. You got the more mild autistic people, which I am, and
yeah,
you got the more
yeah.
um severe
How,
type.
yeah. How does it affect you in your everyday life?
Um, I haven't really finished on the last point. Like my uncle as
I'll carry
well
on.
was
Sorry.
like in denial for years
Yeah,
about autism. But again, he also eventually came along, and you know, yeah, that was, and so that's how the story about how my family reacted to autism
right.
when they started to realise that I could actually do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
We actually, it wasn't until a few years later where I think my mum and now went wardrobe shopping or was in like this wardrobe bed shelf bed store, right?
hmm,
And they were speaking to one of the store managers, and they said, "Mo, one of my autistic sons is actually going to university."
yeah,
This was unheard of for my family. Like, my family had absolutely no idea that an autistic person could go to university.
yeah,
So when they saw, and they almost used this as to say, hang on a minute, if we play our cards right, he could turn out just like them. And obviously, well, I am at uni. Well, I'll
yeah.
pass this one thing, but I am definitely at uni.
Yeah, yeah, and well done to that, mate. How does it affect you in your everyday your everyday life?
Well, it's different, really. Like
Yeah.
it'll be different for all people. Like I know how it affects some of my friends with autism.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're talking about it from a physical point of view, one of the biggest ones you can always tell an autistic person is that, and this happened with me as well,
Mm-hmm.
is with eye contact.
Yeah.
Like autistic people are very, very notorious for not having great eye contact. It's one of the I'd say it's one of the signs that you could tell that someone is, autistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so I had to find ways to go around it.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, do you find it hard, like, because a lot of people call it masking? Do you find yourself masking to kind of fit into social situations a lot, like holding a lot back?
You see, on the social side of autism is where you really struggle because with me, when I'm in a group of two or three,
Yeah.
I'm usually okay with being immersed with the conversations. Like I'm the type of person that even though I would enjoy a night out,
Yeah.
I would rather stick to a very, very small group of people. Like if there's a large group of people, I'll sort of like diverge to a group of smaller people. Something like because with a large group of people, you don't know when or when not you're able to talk.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've struggled at even whilst getting even throughout. So whether we're talking about primary school, secondary school, university, college,
Yeah.
I've always struggled with massive group situations that are social situations.
Yeah.
Like it's, but at the same time, I'm more of an introvert anyway. Like I'd rather, if you said to me, would you rather go to a party tonight or would you rather go on a hike for the whole day with just two or three of us? I'd
Mm-hmm.
take the hike.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's sort of like your own space, and you
Yeah.
feel comfortable in your own space.
And I think that's another thing with autism as well is like some autistic people are notorious for having like you know for being overstimulus with noise.
Yeah. Um,
So
I heard
that's
one exact. Sorry, go on, mate.
okay. No, you go first. You go first.
I heard one example that somebody explained to me once. Whether I'm correct or not, I'm not a doctor, but somebody told me that certain forms of autism, it's kind of like the world has been turned up. So it's kind of like all this sensory stuff
Down.
coming at you. It's just louder and louder and harder to cope with.
Yeah,
Would I be correct in that?
you would be. And there's a couple of and again, there are a couple of there are a couple of uh words for this as well. It's when it gets so severe,
Mm,
you go into crisis. An autistic person has a tendency to go into crisis,
yeah,
and this is shown by one or two ways. You've got introverted crisis, and you've got extroverted crisis.
yeah,
Um, Introverted crisis is when you completely shut down.
yeah,
Like the second my uncle died,
hmm,
I completely shut down.
yeah,
From the outside world.
hmm,
And you know and it was hard. But extroverted crisis is when the opposite happens from you go from when you shut down to having a complete mental breakdown.
yeah,
And I've seen both happen numerous times.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. So do you sometimes find it difficult to deal with certain emotions as well?
emotions, especially in early secondary school. Like in early secondary school, I couldn't understand. Like I'll give you a really, really good example. When I always like physical contact. Like obviously that's difficult now because of COVID, but
Yeah.
even before, this was going back to the beginning of secondary school, like, I could not understand. This is going to sound really weird to a lot of people, but I
Fine.
could not understand why it was inappropriate to hug the teacher.
Yeah.
Like, I always like, and it had to be explained to me that whilst hugs are usually good, it's kind of wrong to, hug someone that is a professional.
Yeah.
And now that I'm going into looking into a teaching career myself,
Yeah.
I now understand why that is a little bit, well, wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so, and it puts the teacher in an awkward position because at the one hand, they don't want to reject you,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they know they have to keep a professional bound. They know they have to
Yeah.
keep their professional
They have to keep
boundary.
those boundaries. Yeah.
And so what I was doing, I was actually putting the teacher in a very, very bad position every single time, and and I couldn't not get the grasp of it because I was always like, oh, hugging
Yeah. You
people are
see it
like,
as a
oh,
positive
right.
thing, like, oh, I'll give you a hug. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
but it's also the same thing with friends. Like, whenever I see a friend cry, it's like, oh, I can't understand the grasp. I couldn't understand why they didn't want a hug, and then some people, just don't like that. So
Yeah.
I had to almost reteach myself when or when not it is appropriate. And the way I sat and the way my family did it is you ask first. So you ask first. So, like, for example, if I see one of my mates down, I was like, do you want someone to talk to? And then you see where the conversation progresses.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you
and
find,
so,
go on.
no, you go first. You go first because I've found
What,
out that. Well,
what I was going to say was, do you always have to kind of make conscious effort then? Is it always work to kind of be like, okay, I won't do this. I won't do this. Is it always like you have to, is it hard work, mate, sometimes to kind of, kind of check yourself in that? Is it always an ongoing thing, or is it kind of the more you learn to do it, the more natural it comes? Or is it always a
it's always a constant struggle because you're dealing with different people all the time.
yeah,
Like, you know, obviously for people watching the podcast, they may not know this, but it's that situation again that happened a couple of weeks ago. Like, when I posted, like, when I basically spammed our group chat,
yeah,
that was a professional group chat, and
yeah,
Emily Ashmore sent me a private text saying, "Listen, Josh, this is a professional group chat, so basically just make sure you keep the messages to a minimum."
yes,
And so what we did from that is I spoke to Emily, and we basically all agreed to set up two different group chats.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
we
know
did, yeah,
to keep the one group professional, and the other group I could just then post all my memes and
yeah,
just a bit of banter.
yeah, yeah, and you do have very good banter. Um, which, we see, the thing is, do you think, um, because do you think that because of social constructs, do you think it's a barrier to you, your autism is a barrier to you or to other people, where therefore you feel like you have to coach yourself because of social constructs?
Um, it's definitely something that I'm working on,
Yeah,
but I feel like but again, you're talking about you're going back to that thing with friends, and you're going back to things with
yeah,
with family, and even professionals. Like, the way I speak to sometimes with professionals is actually the same way as I'll talk to my mates. And
yeah,
again,
yeah,
that isn't intentional.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's just my my usual self, and I didn't realize that you needed two separate languages
yeah,
until I went to Hereford in the summer to do a bit of
yeah,
farming. I had to come back a couple of weeks later because I wasn't good enough.
yeah,
But that isn't down to my autism. That was just because I was overweight. And since then, well, to give you some context, how much I weighed, I weighed 300 pounds then. I weighed myself this, which is 21 stone 9, I believe. So somewhere around about there. I weighed myself today, this morning. I was 17.4.
Wow. Come a long
And
way.
we're talking a 9-month gap.
Yeah, yeah.
And I saw myself slipping back to old habits after Christmas. So what I did is I gave caffeine up for Lent.
Yeah, yeah. So, mate, I do that. I was meant to put myself on a diet. The first week was absolutely fine. Then the second week, I just found myself like, oh, I'll get a takeaway. Oh, I've had to see Chinese tonight. So it is really food is my weakness. Food is my weakness, and it's hard to.
What's your weakness in terms of a Chinese takeaway?
I've got a thing for duck curry.
It's gotta be the chicken chow mein for me.
Chicken chow mein is nice, to be fair. it is nice.
But going back to your original question about social construct, the way I was talking to the guys that are working at the farm is the same way I was talking to people who I view as authority figures, not as in like my friends. So, like, I had to understand the difference between the two very quickly, and it's still something I'm getting used to. So it'll only come with time and experience, and it is a mental drain. Because it's like I don't want to say something that's wrong, but I don't. At the same time, if that does happen, I don't know how the other person will take it. That's it again.
Does that give you a lot? Does that give you a lot of anxiety as well? Does that make you anxious as well?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
It's like I sometimes with me, and it's like it's hard one to explain, but it's like okay, I cannot. It's like okay, what do I do? It's almost like I've got like a notebook. I don't have this, by the way, but it's like I have a mental notebook about how I'm like categorizing people. So my mom and my mom's boyfriend are family. You, Emily, are like work friends, for instance. Flatmates are social friends. And the professors at university, they are like obviously professionals. So it's almost like I'm categorizing people. Self can be a negative thing. But at the same time, it's the best strategy that I've got to face this, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do, which leads me to this question. I mean, you talk about
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. It leads me to my next question, where it's kind of like, do you think social attitudes need to change towards autism and mental health as a whole?
Mental health as a whole. Wow, that's two different things. Like with autism, there's a lot of progression being made with autism. I think there's a lot of autism. There's a lot of autism documentaries. There's a guy. There was I can't remember what program it was, but there's a couple of programs before that I watched before with an autistic person just being able to sing and just seeing how they like underground, and then get like a massive audience. So like I don't remember the program that was called, but I do remember there was a program very similar to that. And I think with all these autism documentaries that are coming out and all this people being found, like what you gotta realize as well is that 1 in 60 is not a rare condition.
No,
like there's a lot of research going on autism, because 1 in 68 people have been formally diagnosed throughout the world with autism, with somewhere on the autistic spectrum. Could be mild, could be severe.
Yes. Yes.
But what I'm going to bring to you now is this.
Mm-hmm.
There are autistic people out there that haven't been diagnosed. So that number,
Yeah. Like,
68, could be something like 1 in 60.
um,
Because
I,
people,
yeah, go on.
go on.
Sorry. I saw, like, from what you just said there, like, there's some people that haven't even been diagnosed. I saw this TED talk with this woman, who had autism, but she wasn't diagnosed for it until she was 35. And because she spent most of her life masking some elements of her behaviors, it was a really sad story actually. It led to her depression and stuff, but she wasn't diagnosed until she was 35.
That's like,
Yeah.
I can't even, like, I know, mate, that's mine that had been diagnosed at 13. And I thought that was like, because again,
Mm,
that's the thing, like, I always assumed that all growing up, that all autistic people were diagnosed between the age of 2 and 6.
mm-hmm.
It didn't until my friend got diagnosed at the age of 13. It didn't even hit me that you could be diagnosed with something like. I even remember my own classmate being diagnosed on the autism or on the autistic spectrum in year 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking 15, 16 years. We're talking 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
can be diagnosed. Imagine going through I can't imagine going through primary school, secondary school, college, work, almost throughout your entire early adulthood without being diagnosed. And yet it does happen. It
It,
does happen.
yeah. Yeah. It does happen, and it's kind of like, you know. Did you ever? Did you ever have hard times at school, like amongst other pupils? Were you a victim of bullying? Was that ever an issue?
Honestly, it was like, I'm not going to brag about this too much, but actually I was kind of very popular because,
I can see why.
remember when I was going, you remember when I said about the fact that I'd rather, rather do a hike than take part in parties?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with dinner. Like, the dinner hall was way too loud for me. So what I used to do is I used to litter pick during lunch times, so I get to avoid the social. It was almost like so I could avoid the social need,
Yeah.
and just be able to, just to be able to pick up litter. A few, you got those people that are like, oh yeah, just dropped it, yeah, and I had to pick it up,
Yeah.
which was annoying. But when teachers saw that, they were obviously absolutely livid.
Yeah.
And litter picking is something I still do even now. Like,
Yeah.
even just before COVID hit, Open Doors did a litter pick round round the University of Newman.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a massive thing. But the thing is, I couldn't follow the route because I was like, well, hang on a minute. We're doing this whole thing, we're looking where we're going to follow up the path, yet, and clean up the whole around the uni. But yet, our own university had litter all over the place. So me and a few others stayed behind to basically litter pick on the university campus to make it say, look, we're doing our bit as well, so why don't you do yours?
That's it.
At first, Emily was like, well, how come you didn't follow us? And then I explained, and then she was like, understood, have a nice day.
Yeah. 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 So what it is, it's a relationship of two parties, really. It's kind of like you have to understand the way social dynamics works among some people, and then people also have to understand your construct of things. You know what I mean? And just to say on this, is there anything you'd like to pull out there that you'd want people to understand about autism?
Just the thing is, I don't know if this is still a thing, but it's definitely a thing when I grew up.
Yeah.
When your child got quote unquote labelled with
Hmm.
autism,
Yeah.
it's just that. a label. Like,
Label.
we don't know any different to what you guys. We don't know what you guys are experiencing. We don't know what a neurotypical person would experience.
Yeah, yeah,
You will the same way you don't really truly know how an autistic person feels.
yeah,
Like a lot of autistic person have tunnel vision,
yeah,
like, and because of this, like, we don't recognize that. We don't recognize dangers. Like, for example, I didn't recognize me holding the door for people, doing litter picking, you know, saying hi to everyone. Don't worry, I'm not hugging. I don't hug. I'm not hugging teachers. Um, doing well in class would earn me a principal's award, and yet it did.
yeah,
Like, I didn't realise that just volunteering for something as small as the youth council, for the what's it called now? There was a thing, like, there was like a youth council thing, student voice. That was it. Just
yeah,
volunteering with student voice would lead me to do a You in Mind would lead me to just 8 years later to do host a You in Mind conference for mental health.
yeah,
Where we talked a little bit about mental health in general, raising awareness, doing certain activities, looking at people. So we're creating our own characters, so people could say what's going on here. How could we help them? And to be part of that felt really special. And
yeah.
I think, don't think that just because an autistic person has been diagnosed with autism doesn't make it a bad thing,
No, it does
like,
not.
in
It does
general.
not.
But I will say it's, well, I say I didn't recognise that all that stuff about volunteering, doing gardening club,
Yeah,
doing all these extracurricular activities at my secondary school could earn me a principal's award.
yeah.
I didn't also, it could also work the opposite way as well about dangers. Like, I didn't recognise, because it doesn't recognise dangers. Like, and I talked a little bit about this on my YouTube, on the only video I post on my YouTube channel, which is about thing about autism. I'll talk a bit about this as well.
Good. Go on, go on.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is a time where not recognising, an autistic person not recognising something could be bad. I did say the good stuff. I'm now going to say negative. As Stanoff said, all things equal as it should be. All things balanced as it should be.
Yeah,
So the thing I'm going to mention is I used to run. So at the start of the year,
yeah,
and this is another thing. Like, for me, getting to class was I want to avoid the detention for being late, right?
yeah.
So badly that I'd run across the road without looking to catch a bus.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty dangerous.
Not understanding that danger could have cost me my life. And I did not understand. And it was only brought to the teacher's attention when a couple of students said, Josh ran across the road today to cross a bus and was nearly hit by a car.
Yeah.
I did not understand until that point that not getting getting a 10-minute detention would have been a better than to do something as reckless as what I did.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, and so the teacher had to implement a thing where saying, I'm allowed to be up to 15 minutes late
yeah,
because of this incident.
yeah,
Because what he's done is panicked himself about not being able to get them, because my mum didn't drive at the time. I had to catch the bus.
yeah.
I thought that I would rather be late. I'd rather be on time and nearly here than be late and get a detention.
Yeah, yeah.
It just had to take away the threat of the detention to make me understand, to an extent.
Again, both compromise. Yeah,
To make me understand that, we want you here. We don't want you in that. We'd rather you be here at 8:42 than for you to be in a QE in the coma.
yeah. Yeah. So again, it's all about compromise. Like both parties need to understand. And
And when you get that compromise and you get that structure,
mm,
we can thrive. Like
yeah,
we can act, like we can actually achieve so much because we can also like look at things from different points of views. Like we can come up with theories that very few people, neurotypical people, could look at,
yeah,
and we could really, and that allows us to think outside the box.
mhm,
It makes us bonkers, but it makes us think outside the box. And
yeah,
when you're working as a group, it could be that information could be valuable.
yeah, definitely. Josh, and I'd like to wrap it up by saying thank you so much for today. And if you want another opportunity to come on the podcast, you're more than welcome, and we can do a part two as well. You
I'll be
mentioned,
more than happy. I'll be more than happy to do a part two.
yeah, you mentioned earlier that you had a YouTube channel.
I don't have a YouTube. Well, I have a YouTube channel, but it's only got one video on it. If you
Right,
look up Joshua Murphy, My Life with Autism, you just
right,
type that into YouTube onto the YouTube search bar.
okay,
My video should come up, and and that is a presentation that I did on autism
brilliant.
back when I was just about to leave college into university. So I was
Yeah,
basically in transitions.
yeah.
In
Oh,
transition.
wow. Well, Josh, I wish the best of luck to you. And I hope people look at that presentation because it could be useful for our education, understanding, And thanks again for being on Dave's podcast. And I hope to have you back here and we can talk more in depth. It's just that,
Absolutely, man. Like, I don't. I absolutely like. I want to be back here. Like, I want to. I want to be able to do this opportunity again. And you know,
yeah,
if
yeah,
I say that one person, that's one more. That's one person that's benefited. So
yeah, yeah.
I'll be.
Thank
I'll be.
you.
I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you again. And please look at Josh's YouTube channel, his YouTube video. Could you repeat that quickly again what it is so people know?
So you just type into the search bar Joshua Murphy, My Life with Autism.
Okay. Wicked. Wicked. Josh, again, thank you, mate. I really appreciate your time and thanks for coming to do this. All right, mate.
Absolutely.
And I'll speak to you definitely before our next podcast. I'll speak to you during the week. And thank you, man. Thank you. And this is a goodbye from all of us. Dave's Odd-Kast. And tune in next time. Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.
Cheers. Right. And the stuff.